friends! Welcome back to my channel if you're an old friend, or welcome if you're new. My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do cooking videos like this one, but I also do planner videos, clothing hauls, Lush hauls, I do homeschool videos, a little bit of everything. So if any of these things sound like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join my little YouTube family. This video is the 5th installment, I think, of Tamra's at Southern Wife Everyday Life cookbook collab. So we're bringing back the cookbooks, finding recipes that maybe we've long forgotten or that are old family favorites. I'm kind of taking advantage of the brief to dive into books that I've had for a while but haven't really used very much. Totally guilty of running to Pinterest anytime I need a recipe for anything, which means I ignore the multitudes of cookbooks that I have in my kitchen. Speaking of which, this is one that I've had for quite a while and I really don't think I'd used it at all until this video. So as you can see by the title, this is gonna be a dairy-free keto recipe, actually 2 of them. I'm making a main dish and a dessert. If you're new to my channel, you might not know that while the keto part kind of comes and goes, I do eat keto, I eat low carb, paleo, everything I eat kind of has a vibe and essence of these things. But the one thing that I do consistently in my diet is I do not eat gluten or dairy, period. Keto's a bit of a challenge when you don't eat dairy, but I've been doing it for a really long time. So if you're interested in other recipes like that, I'll post a link up here in the corner. Speaking of links, I'm gonna have a link to Tamra's channel in the description box of this video, plus the playlist link, because this is a collab. So once you've finished watching my video, you can go into that playlist and see what everybody else made for their cookbook theme this month. And the fun thing about this sort of a playlist is that that's literally the only constraint, is that your recipe or recipes must come from a cookbook. So you're gonna find all sorts of cuisines, all sorts of courses, everything. Sky's the limit. So if you're looking for some meal inspo, that playlist is the place to be. For my recipes though, as I said, I did a main and a dessert. So I'm gonna show you guys what I did. And if you wanna get this book yourself, I'm gonna have a link in the description box for the Amazon link to the book as well. So the very first recipe I'm going to be sharing with you is this black skillet chicken thighs with artichoke hearts. Black skillet, they mean cast iron pan. I love my cast iron. I use it pretty much every day. I have it at the perfect level of nonstick. So I was very excited for this recipe and it is so easy. You'll see. And for dessert, lemon squares, because I love a citrus dessert and this looked super easy too. So now that you know what we're up to, let me show you how I make these recipes. First things first, we're gonna preheat our oven to 400 degrees. And let me show you what we're gonna work with today. First off, the hardware, we need our cast iron pan. And for the chicken recipe, we're going to need 6 tablespoons of olive oil, 6 boneless skin-on thighs. I could only find boneless and skinless, so that's what I'm using. A 14-ounce can of artichoke hearts that we're going to drain, 1 onion diced, a half a cup of bone broth. I happen to have some homemade on hand, and if you'd like to learn how to make this, I'll post a link in the corner for my instant pot bone broth recipe. You're also going to need a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, and the juice of 1 lemon. To begin, we're going to heat up our olive oil in our cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. Now, the recipe did call for 6 tablespoons of oil. I used 4 tablespoons and thought that was plenty. I made this recipe a second time and I only used 2 tablespoons of oil, and that was plenty also. Obviously, if you're keto, you want higher fat. That's the whole point. But it's not necessary for the recipe. So if you decide that you want to scale back, the recipe should not be affected. While we're waiting for the oil in the pan to heat up, I'm going to go ahead and dice my onion. Here's the thing I've realized about being an adult is that just because you're grown doesn't mean that you do everything perfectly. One thing that I know I will never do well is cut onions. Not only do I hate doing it, but I'm awful at it. So understand that I am not showing you me cutting this onion because I want you to do it this way. I'm just letting you know that an onion must be cut for this recipe. But by all means, if you could just buy the onion pre-cut, do that. If you're the kind of adult that knows what you're doing around a knife and an onion, then bless, do your thing. Me, I'm just kind of trying to scrape by here. Now that our olive oil is nice and hot, I'm gonna add the chicken and cook it until it's nicely browned on the bottom, so for about 4 minutes. The recipe doesn't say you should season at this point, but I cannot bring myself to cook chicken without seasoning, so I did use a little bit of garlic salt on each side of these thighs before putting them into the pan. After a few minutes, your chicken should have some browning and some coloring. Mine honestly could have stood a little more color, but I was excited and I wanted to get going. So I flipped it already, added my artichokes. Remember to drain the can, but you do want the whole can of artichokes. Throw in your onion, your half cup of broth, your salt, and your pepper. With your dish assembled and ready to go, you can place the entire skillet into your preheated oven at 400 degrees and cook it for 40 minutes or until the chicken is cooked through. 40 minutes was the perfect amount of time for me. At this point, you can remove the skillet from the oven, squeeze the lemon juice over the top to serve, and you're ready for your meal. Now for our lemon squares, we're going to need the oven preheated at 325, and we're also going to need 6 tablespoons of coconut oil melted, 1 lemon quartered and seeded. You need 4 large eggs and 1 cup of Swerve granular sweetener or any other granulated alternative sweetener of your choosing. Now, this is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard of, and I'm super apprehensive about this, but I'm gonna go ahead and follow the recipe as it's written. They want me to slice the lemon and remove the seeds, but we're gonna throw the whole lemon in here, just chopped in pieces, into the blender and hence into our dessert. So peel, pith, the whole 9. Everything's gonna end up in our lemon squares. I don't know about this, but I'm choosing to trust the recipe here. One nice thing about this recipe is that it all comes together in the blender, so it's kind of a one-pot deal. You're gonna throw your lemon wedges, your coconut oil, your eggs, and your sweetener all into the blender and blend it until smooth. I'm just gonna go ahead and melt my coconut oil first. This took about 20 seconds in the microwave, and I just stirred it once halfway through. Now that our lemon square mixture is ready, I'm gonna pour it into an 8x8 glass dish. It's been greased with some avocado oil spray, and it says to bake it at 325 for 50 minutes or until set. I ended up actually baking mine for a little over an hour. I wanna say it was about an hour and 5 minutes, because at the 50-minute mark, the middle was still kind of liquidy and jiggly. This is not to be expected when you're using such a high amount of oil, but I found that at the hour and 5 minute, hour and 10 minute mark, the entire thing did look set, so that's when I stopped baking. Here they are, golden and perfect. Make sure you let them cool for a little while. I waited about a half hour before cutting them into 9 squares, and you can feel free to serve whenever you'd like. I will say they were much better the next day after they'd been in the fridge overnight. All right, pals, so those are my recipes from this dairy-free keto cookbook. That chicken with artichokes, I loved it so much. It was so great as leftovers the next day that I actually made it a second time this week. Yep, I don't remember the last time I discovered a recipe that I decided I needed to have twice in 1 week. So that's telling you something. I mean, how could you go wrong? Artichokes, onion, lemon, that olive oil, ugh. So good. And speaking of lemon, those lemon squares, I was apprehensive about throwing the whole lemon into the blender like that, pith and all. Like, I thought this cannot possibly work. This is gonna turn out super bitter. And I was kind of on the fence when I tried it just out of the oven. But let me tell you, those lemon squares the next day after sitting in the fridge, wow, wow, wow. definitely keeping this recipe, definitely making those again. Even non-keto people will absolutely love this. You have my word on that. I don't think anybody that loves lemon desserts is going to be able to turn these down. Overall, huge successes, and once again, these are recipes that I've had forever and I never thought to make because I just don't really turn to my cookbooks. So thanks forevermore, Tamara, for coming up with this concept, for hosting the collab, and for pushing me to find these recipes that have just been languishing there waiting for me to discover them. Before you go, I want to remind you one more time to check out that playlist in the description box so you can see what everybody else made for their cookbook videos this month. And I hope that you'll subscribe and come on back to see what I make next month. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I hope you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you'd subscribe and click that notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye!